Good evening. Welcome to tonight's First Chesapeake Chat session. I am Sarah Gagnon, Assistant Director of Volunteer and Community Engagement, and I'm here to introduce tonight's First Chesapeake Chant, sponsored by Newport News Shipbuilding. First, let's take a moment to thank Newport News Shipbuilding for sponsoring tonight's chat. And some quick housekeeping. We will let the speakers present first, and then we'll open up for questions later. If you have questions while the chat is going on, please put them in the chat, and we will try and get to them. All right, Ron, you're up.
All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm Ron Therian, the Director of Programs for First Chesapeake. And I just really kind of wanted to start off with a few things. You know, we're talking about inspection and so on. And what I'm trying to do is kind of give you a little background about why. I mean, if you've watched some of our other chats as well as town halls and so on, we went through what we're kind of doing this year. So, I mean, the whole thing is, you know, because of the whole COVID situation, we're doing, smaller events. Right now we're planning our events at having 8 teams at them. And so we'd have 8 teams and they'd be 50-person events maximum. And those events we've set them up so they're easily scalable. So that if as restrictions and so on change and that if we have to, we'll be able to, based on what those local restrictions are, we'll be able to scale those events down to 25, which would then have 4 teams at them. Or if need be, we'll scale them down to just 10 people. From the other perspective, we're looking at having very little, staff at them or volunteers. So, we're trying to maximize how many of the students can attend. And then the other thing I will say is we've actually created a mechanism for being able to do a virtual audience so that your teams can actually join in on the audience here, and you'll be able to actually see the field. You'll actually be able to yell at them on the field. That we have speakers set up so that when you're online, you can actually talk to the teams that are on the field. They can actually talk back. We have a camera, a microphone. You can watch the action right there and everything. So that's the other way of trying to maximize the rest of the team who can't come to the event so that they can actually participate like it was a normal year. But based on the fact that we're not going to have very many volunteers there, we're going to, quite be limiting on having robot inspectors. So what we're planning on doing is not having robot inspectors there, but actually having teams do self-inspections ahead of time. And the other thing I will say is that if you're at an event and the head ref, like always, even in a regular year, kind of reserves the right to say, hey, that robot needs to be re-inspected or whatever. So the head ref could call for an inspection and we'd have inspectors remotely that you could talk to about different things. And the head ref will also have, the sizing box on hand and all that stuff. So that's kind of all I wanted to kind of cover. And I'm going to actually turn it over to Dan. And Dan, if you can introduce yourself, and then he's got a few slides to share with us.
Okay, great. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
All right. My name is Dan Barvinick. I have been coaching First Tech Challenge for 7 going on 8 years. I coach Team 7182 Mechanical Paradox. I've also been doing volunteering at First events for most of the years. Doing one of the things I focus on is robot inspection, and I'm currently a lead robot inspector. I've also done refereeing and some other roles at events. So Ron asked me to put together a talk today for how we're going to do robot inspection this year for First Chesapeake. And so I have a few slides I'd like to go through with everyone. Can you see my slides all right on the screen?
I think, Dan, I'm actually controlling them. He has my slides up on there. So just tell me next slide when you want to go to the next one.
All right, we're on. We'll go to the next one, and it's the one robot inspection plan for 2021. First off, there will not be in-person inspection this year. That is a change, obviously, from other years, given our current circumstances. So what are we going to do instead? we are going to ask teams to fill out their own self-inspection sheet and provide a filled out inspection sheet the Wednesday before the weekend competition. This will be done online. We will be sending instructions, explicit instructions to the teams prior to the events. They will be electronic forms based on the ones in Game Manual Part 1 that have been tailored a bit to make them a little more user-friendly for remote inspection. There'll be a few extra questions on there to kind of simulating what we would ask if we were inspecting your robot live in person. We're also going to ask for several photos of each team's robot from different angles to help us review the inspection. We'll note, just for those who are concerned, the photos will be used by inspectors only, will not be shared in any way with other teams or anyone else. So you can have confidence in that. The inspectors will review the inspection sheets and the photos and alert teams of any issues. By submitting them Wednesday, that gives inspectors Thursday and Friday to get back to teams with any issues. And then if there is an issue at an event, as always, as Ron had mentioned, the head referee has the right to request a check of any robot that is deemed possibly in violation of an inspection rule. One important note there is that they will have a sizing box on hand. So if anything like it did not actually meet the 18 by 18 by 18, we will have the option to check the size of the robot on the spot. So let's go on to the next slide. As an inspector, there's quite a few things to check on the list, but there are certain things that are common themes that we see basically every competition. First off, students many times have not read or gone through the inspection checklist themselves. And sometimes we get teams that's the very first time they're going through it. So it's really important, especially this year, to do your own inspection. And as a matter of fact, you'll be required to. One of the biggest things that happens a lot is we see entanglement hazards. And I'll talk to that a bit, what that means. Another one we see commonly are sharp edges. And frequently we'll see robots that don't actually fit inside the 18 by 18 box. Missing stickers, warning and power switches, and numbers that are not the right size and visible on both sides. Now, obviously, we get other things that we find and we work with teams on, but these are the ones that are repeat themes every year at every event. So moving on to the next slide, the robot inspection checklist. Every team should know that this is in Appendix B of Game Manual Part 1. This year, First Chesapeake will have a custom form that adds some additional questions, like I mentioned. Moving on to the next slide, here are some examples. This form is in progress right now, being developed in a Google spreadsheet so that teams will be able to fill it out online and submit it. You'll have the first three columns are the typical questions that are, or the first two columns are straight out of the Game Manual Part 1. But then we'll have some tailored questions that are related. For example, have you self-inspected the final configuration of your competition robot with all mechanisms configurations that will be used? And then you have a column for yes or no, and whether you self-assess that you pass. Some of them we're going to ask that you fill in a little bit more than yes or no, or pass and fail. So, for example, do your servo motors move during initialization? And if so, is there a warning label attached? In this example, I hypothetically filled out a team that says no, their servos do not move, and since there's no movement, we don't have a sticker, and they've self-assessed that they pass. And if that was the case, that would pass. A couple other examples. Typically, in the past, we have the 8 motor and 12 servo limit, and the teams would just self-inspect yes or no, pass, fail. This year, we'd like to add, since we're doing it remotely, we'd like to ask that you put a sentence or two that explains that. For example, motors. a sentence might say, we use 6 modern robotics motors, 4 for the drivetrain, 1 for intake, 1 for the shooter, and all are legal per RE10. That plus the photos of the robot will help the inspector remotely say, yes, this looks legal. Same with servos. For example, we use 4 Go Builda servos, 1 for a wobble goal grabber, 1 for a blocker lift, and 2 for some mechanism X, whatever that is. All are compatible with the hubs and all meet RE11. This is the type of thing that we'd like to see. This will be refined a little bit more before we get to the competitions, but this is a preview of what's to come there. Moving on to the next slide. Entanglement hazards. We see this a good amount. The typical entanglement hazard are wires that are loose and, quote, flopping around. You have a wire that runs from your control hub up to a mechanism, and the wire is loosely strewn across the robot. This can have trouble for both your own team and other teams. What's the concern? You have a wire that's dangling on the side of your robot. Maybe it starts off in the middle of your robot, then as you move around, it extends outside your robot. You drive past another robot, it gets caught on that robot, and then either one or both teams end up being very sad. So, for example, if it's your team, it might disconnect that mechanism and then you can't use it. If it's the other team, it might immobilize the other robot or both robots. Either way, it's against the rules and it's something we see a lot. So what are the solutions? They're pretty straightforward. Zip ties are your friends. Have a bucket of zip ties. When you're getting ready for your competition, look for those loose wires and use zip ties to tie them down to things. Another easy solution is electrical tape. Take a look at your robots, make sure those wires are secure, and you'll be fine. Let's move on to sharp edges. Sharp edges pose a danger both to your team and anyone that has to get close to or reach into your robot. As an inspector, typically we would start off by observing the robot, looking for anything that looks suspect. And then we would gently take our hand and touch the various parts of the robot, looking for anything that might be sharp, pointy, or cause a hazard. We would then ask the team to file down any sharp edges. And if they can't file it down, the alternate plan is to wrap it with electrical tape or duct tape to protect. Now, why are we doing this? It may seem pretty obvious, but you might have even a sharp edge in the middle of your robot that seems like, why would that matter? Well, if yourself or, for example, a head referee needs to reach inside your robot to shut it off, and they reach in to remove a battery that's overheating or turn the power off, they could easily get cut on a sharp edge. So use that file, wrap with tape, easy solutions. But I will tell you, it can be very stressful to solve those at the moment of a competition, especially if you have to file things down. Moving on to the 18 by 18 box. First off, how can you avoid this? Design to be less than 18 inches. You will hear this at the beginning of the season. You will hear it from veterans. Do not design your robots to be 17.999 inches long or wide or tall. Allow yourself a 1/4 inch, maybe even a 1/2 inch. Measure your robot, fix it in advance. There's not too much we can do at the moment other than give you advice on how to potentially solve it, but this is an easy fix. Use a tape measure and go ahead and check your robots in advance. And don't forget to check in all configurations. So to make sure that if you have alternate starting configuration, you check that as well. The next one, missing stickers. I can't tell you how many teams come to the event without a power switch sticker or the robot moves during initialization sticker. And here I say, I call them stickers, but they really don't have to be stickers. At an event, we typically have extra stickers for teams that need them. But in advance, you can go right in Game Manual Part 1, print it out on regular paper, and use packing tape. It typically works really well. Or you can use Scotch tape if you need to, and tape it onto a flat surface. Again, if those servos move during initialization, you need the sticker. Should be near the servos. And no matter what, you need the power switch sticker. There are certain instructions, as you see at the bottom. They have to be a certain size. They need to be 1 inch by 2.63 inches, which is a very exact number. But that's the minimum size. And that happens to be an Avery label 5160. Again, also don't wrap it around corners or cylinders. That makes it harder to read. Okay, next one. Robot numbers not the correct size and or not on both sides of the robot. Again, we actually see this a good amount. Teams either put their number in very small letters. Don't forget to put it on both sides of the robot. This is a pretty easy fix. You need to have opposite sides of the robot. They have to be 2.5 inches high and a contrasting color from the background. And they have to be able to withstand the rigors of play. So whether it's self-adhesive stickers or you can go get numbers at Home Depot. You can 3D print them if you're really inspired, or you can do as simple as printing the numbers, checking with a ruler to make sure they're the right size, just on regular white paper, cutting them out, and using packing tape. That's the fallback, a simple method. Again, opposite sides of the robot, so they're easy to see for the refs. And finally, I'd like to hit a couple of my favorite inspectors' questions. These ones always get a laugh at a competition. So the robot does not contain materials that are hazardous. No radioactive materials, no carcinogens, nothing absurd like that. Another one that's a good one is robot does not contain animal-based liquid or gel materials. I haven't had a robot yet that has animal-based liquid or gel materials, but who knows? Maybe somebody might be thinking they'll try that. It is against the rules. And then another one of my favorites is robot does not contain materials that would cause a delay of game if released. So what does that mean? No bags of coffee beans, ball bearings. Seen teams have maybe a mascot that is got is like a beanbag like filled thing. If it could spill onto the floor and spill everywhere, that's a problem. So don't do that. The form otherwise is pretty straightforward. There are some specific questions that you have to go through and make sure that you meet. But all in all, this is going to be a good experience for everyone. If you fill out the form in advance, give us a chance to look it over, include a few photos so we can take a look. And with that, I will open it back up to Ron to take it from here. Good luck, and thank you for listening.
I mean, basically, anybody who has any questions, that'd be great. If, you guys can ask them now.
Put them in the chat.
Or ask them now, and we'll be happy to answer them. Yeah, I know.
Ron, you're getting an echo.
I don't really know why. Not a clue. I mean, the big thing to remember is, all these things are meant to help everybody. So we're going to actually post this presentation online so people can actually look at it online and be able to see kind of what's happening there. So, we'll post that as well as this whole presentation because I think it'll help. And it kind of goes, and I think Dan touched on that 18 by 18. And then the interesting thing is in the last session, talking about chassis, they basically, were saying, well, maybe pick something like 17 by 17. And then if you go over, you're not going to be outside of that framework. So you have a better chance of keeping it within the 18 by 18.
It does look like we're getting a question. They want to know, what do we do for field inspection?
Pull this down.
Will there be similar stuff for field inspections this year?
Okay, so at this point, we're not thinking we'll do similar. We'll do any pre-giving something for field inspections. One of the things I would suggest for teams to do, though, is Rev has a great piece of software they just added this year, and First is even touting it. It only runs on a Windows machine, but when you run it, it will actually check the versions when you connect your system to it, and not only of the Rev hardware, but it also checks the versions of your phone, and it will update them accordingly for you ahead of time. And that 90% of the time, the field inspection part is, we get caught in the fact that phones are out of sync with the correct version, and the control hub or whatever it is. And I know this year, now a lot of people have the new Rev box that has basically the cell modem, contained in it.
Okay, thanks, Ron. We do have another question coming in about how will the robot inspectors check sharp edges if they can't, in fact, touch the robot this year?
I can take that if you like.
Please.
That's a challenge. We're going to start with the premise of self-inspection. I mean, that's got to be key here. We'd like teams to look at it themselves and really look at it for sharp edges and put their name down that they've actually done that and they believe there are no sharp edges. It would be good if mentors from each team take a look at their team's robot and do that same check in addition to their students, because we don't want anyone getting hurt. But you're right. I mean, all we can go on is what the teams say and a couple photos, which, there may be 2 or 3 photos for each team. So it's only going to be so much we can do virtually. That being said, the head ref that's on site, if they observe something that looks egregious, then they will absolutely have the right to do something about that and say, that is definitely a sharp edge. You're going to have to solve that.
And those are the cases also, is if the head ref kind of finds that, we're planning on trying to have some, we have for tech support, we are planning on having some, CSAs and inspectors in the background so that you can actually connect to them and discuss with them the issue. They can help you fix it.
Yeah.
And that includes a little, tablet that you can show your robot to them over on video.
Any other questions out there? I have a question. So on Wednesday, when you submit your form, will it have contact information for people to get in touch if there's something they have questions on?
So in essence, the thing is that we're going to have to be the kind of the go-between on that, because we can't give out coach information. So that's a process we're going to have to work out.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it'd be nice to be notified also if your form was looked at and you whether there's a problem with it or not, it'd be nice to know that somebody already looked at it and said it was okay.
Correct.
So we'd
want
an
approval process.
Right.
And again, we've never done this before. The teams haven't, the staff hasn't. This is all new for all of us. So again, if people have suggestions, Ron, and I and many people on staff love to hear suggestions on ways to make this process work, because this is a big learning part. The inspection is to help teams learn. Right. That process helps teams learn. It's not it's not to prevent people from competing or catch people in mistakes. It's to help people learn so that their robot doesn't get disconnected on the field and it doesn't run because a piece fell off.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have a month and a half to figure this out.
Yes,
So
thankfully.
We'll iron out the kinks between now and then.
Now and then.
Yeah.
All right.
So any other questions? Any other questions about anything? How's that?
I was going to say,
You got us all on here.
what the events will look like.
Not even inspection.
If you're interested in being an inspector, let us know. We are getting the question, is it possible to offer a pre-inspection? It's a great question. Good suggestion.
I think that would be hard to do. And, I mean, we're trying to keep teams as segregated as possible. So even at the events, we're trying to say, you go to the event, you stay in your pit with your people. And, the next team does the same thing and so on. And we're trying not to get
I think they're talking about a virtual pre-inspection. So if you're worried about doing this inspection process and you don't want to wait till the Wednesday before to find out that you're a rookie team and you've done a couple of things that an inspector is going to get you on, or that's going to cause you to do a lot of work, is it possible to get it before then?
Yeah,
I could be wrong, but that's how I read it.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And one of the things that we're actually looking at along those lines is, and we haven't kind of ironed out all the details with it either, but we're looking at actually creating like an online session, let's say every Wednesday or every, once a week kind of thing, where we have teams that fall into rooms. So, one of the rooms may be inspection. One of the rooms is like control systems, software issues and so on, where we have experienced teams that say, hey, Wednesday night from this time to this time, I'll come on and man that room for you. And that's kind of what we're, the kind of thing we're looking for. So I think that would solve that problem. But along with that, hopefully everybody gets the fact that in order for us to successfully do these things, we need all your help because we can't do these things ourselves.
That is in fact true.
So again, if you're an experienced team or you have skills in a certain area, contact us and let's see if we can connect you up in that.
Perfect.
I think that's a good idea. Good idea. I like the idea of a virtual pre-inspection. It's a matter of how many teams want. If we have tons of teams that want to do that, then it becomes, manpower limiting. But the idea is a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, everyone, thanks for coming tonight. Lastly, I would like to thank today's speakers, Ron and Dan. Thanks for being here and taking time and putting together presentations. We would also like to, again, thank our sponsor, Newport News Shipbuilding, for making this chat possible. Please stick around for a short video from Newport News after we end.